Hi there and welcome. I appreciate you stopping by. This is Jennifer McGuire and I'm back with another video, this time sharing a unique interactive card design. This one's real easy to do and it offers a surprise for the recipient. I call these swing reveal cards. I have two examples for you, but I think it's best to look at the completed cards to understand what we're making. So here's the first card. This large flower image swings, and when you swing it around, there is a message underneath. So you can have anything hidden under there. In this case, the card opens like normal. Then my second card has the same swing feature. In this case, the wreath swings, and my personal message is hidden below that. So this doesn't open like a normal card. Instead, you just swing to reveal the greeting. Okay, let's get started with the flower card first. This features a new stamp set that Altenew designed for Hero Arts in honor of their 45th birthday. So Altenew and Hero Arts are two of my favorite companies. I'm good friends with both, and those two companies are also good friends. I really appreciate and admire this collaboration that they're doing, and this is a very special 6x8 stamp set with a super large flower and lots of nice sentiments. This large flower will be perfect for the swing feature. Okay, so I'm using Hero Arts cardstock. This is a light blue color, and I'm stamping the large flower with a light gray ink. This is Gina K Amalgam Whisper ink. Anything light would work. And notice that my stamp was dirty. It had some black ink on it still, but really you just need a soft colored image. I'm also going to stamp with the same ink, but this time on a Hero Arts green cardstock. You could use a darker color, but I think it's best to go light for this step. Now for the leaves and the flower, I'm using Copic Markers. I'm not the best at using Copic Markers. However, I find they're fast to use and fun. But since I'm creating this large flower and it's going to mostly be blue, it saves me a lot of time to start with blue cardstock. So I really don't have to add much color to this. Now that first petal took me longer than the others did because I'm kind of getting the hang of the colors I'm blending together here. But then I can quickly go through the rest of the petals. And especially those petals that I want to be light, it doesn't take long to color because the cardstock is already colored. The reason I chose a light color ink is because I'm going to white heat emboss over it. When I want a heat embossed image to have Copic coloring, I like to first do the coloring, then do the embossing so that I don't damage the tip of my markers. I want to be careful with them. And also I don't want to add color onto the embossing. So I want it to be bright white and nice and clean. So after I did the quick coloring on this on both the leaves and the flower, I'm using my anti-static powder tool. And then I'm going to stamp with VersaMark ink over it, right where we stamped before. And then I'll add white embossing powder and heat set it. It's amazing how much time I save by starting with the blue colored cardstock for this. And the Hero Arts cardstock really worked great for this. They've got very high quality, very thick cardstock that I would recommend for anything in card making, including card bases. Okay, so now we have that bright white outline on the flower. So I'll go ahead and do the same to the leaves that I colored in the same way. Again, these leaves didn't take long since I started with green cardstock and just added a little bit darker green marker. Okay, once I'm done embossing both of these, I'm just going to use my scissors to cut out these images, and I'm cutting right up against the white embossed edge. Now, although I stamped and cut out this large image, you could instead use a large die cut or a large image in the coordinating die. Okay, for that white background piece, I wanted to add a little interest, so I used the Altenew Dotted Swirls Debossing die. This is a favorite die of mine that I've used many times in videos. Now along the side here, I'm going to make a mark at the halfway point, and this mark is about 3/4 of an inch from the edge. This will just give me a halfway point, so I can die cut a small circle here. So I'm using my Hero Arts Circle Infinity dies. It pretty much has any circle size you need. Lining it up with that dot, and then I'm going to run that through my die cut machine. This will create a hole that will allow us to do the swing feature. Now I'm going to trim this down to be a little bit smaller than 4¼ by 5½. I'm also going to need a piece of white craft foam, or you could use foam tape here, but white craft foam's perfect, and I cut it to be slightly smaller than that white background. I'm going to hold it behind that white background, so centered on the back of it here. Then I'll hold them together and flip it over and make a mark through that hole onto the white craft foam, because I want to die cut the same size circle in the same spot on the craft foam. So I'll use that same circle die there, run it through my die cut machine, it'll die cut beautifully, and now we have a hole on our craft foam. Next, I'm using liquid adhesive on that craft foam piece to add this to the back of that white debossed dot piece that we created. Now it looks like I'm putting a lot on there, but I'm barely squeezing the bottle, so it's very thin lines. So I'm going to line up those holes and put it on the back. And now we have our white background with some dimension behind it. And we have that hole for our swing feature. Okay, while that dries, I have also die cut a circle, doesn't matter what color, just from scrap is fine, that is slightly bigger than the hole we created on our background. In the center of this, I'm gluing a small button that's smaller than the hole we did in our background. And you'll see this all come together in a moment, and it'll make more sense. So you'll see that that button fits nicely in that hole, and there's a large die cut circle behind it. So I just started with that small button that I found in my collection. Then I die cut into the background a circle that's a little bit bigger, and then I glued the button onto a die cut circle that's even bigger than that. You just want to make sure that that button can kind of move around in the hole on our background, and you'll see why soon. Now there's one more piece that we need to create before we add this to our note card. I have a piece of white cardstock that's slightly smaller than our background. You could use whatever color here. I'm lining it up behind it, flipping it over, and then again I'm going to trace that hole onto it. Now this time I'm using an even bigger circle die, and I'm going to die cut right around that dot, and it will make sense in a moment. This will just allow our swing feature to kind of wiggle around in there. If you don't have circle dies, you can also use a different size circle punches for this. Okay, so now it's time to assemble everything. This last piece where we die cut that large circle, we're going to put glue on the back of that and then add it to a note card that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. This can either be a flat piece or a note card. For this example, I'm doing a note card. Now all this piece does is raise everything up so that that little piece that we created with the button in the die cut circle can move around. Now on the back of our craft foam piece, I'm going to put liquid adhesive, and then we're going to put this on top, but we need to add our button piece. So watch, I'm holding the button piece right behind it. I'm going to go in slow motion here. And then I'm going to lay that right onto our note card, making sure that no glue is touching the button or the circle that it's on. You want that to be able to wiggle around in there. That's why I have that extra piece of white cardstock back there with the bigger hole die cut. It just allows that button to move around in there more freely. So you can see how it wiggles around there. Okay, we're in the home stretch. All we have to do is add some strong liquid adhesive on the top of this button. Make sure that the glue doesn't get anywhere else but the top of the button. And then we can lay our flower onto it. Once this dries, just give it a few minutes. This will swing back and forth to reveal our message. So I gave it a few minutes to dry, and there you can see how nicely it swings around. Be sure to watch my next example because I have additional tips to make this swing more if you want it to, and also just to see it in action again makes more sense. Okay, now under where that flower is, I'm going to stamp Hello Lovely from that Altenew stamp set. Now I'm stamping on a debossed background, so there's little holes. So sorry my head's in the way, but I'm using my black pen to fill it in. I probably should have stamped this in the beginning, but I didn't think about it at the time. Now on top of our flower, I have die cut Hugs from a Gina K Hugs Die. I die cut it 3 times from black cardstock and glued it together for dimension and added it on our flower. By the way, the Hero Arts black cardstock is definitely the blackest cardstock I have. It looks great when you want something to stand out on your card. Okay, so here is the finished card. You can see the debossing in the background, our quick coloring on the flower, and our layered die cut in the center. Then, as you take it out of the envelope, you'll notice that the flower moves a bit, so the person will know to swing it. So all you have to do is tilt the card side to side, or just move it with your fingers, and you can see how it reveals the message underneath. It's just something fun and different to do. You can also make this with a brad on the top. and it'll swing with the brad, but it doesn't swing as freely. But you can try that if you'd like to, or if you have brads. I happen to not be able to find mine today. Okay, here is my next example. In this case, the wreath swings side to side. I used the Hero Arts Autumn Wreath stamp set for this. Off screen, I stamped the wreath with black ink on white cardstock and colored it with Copic markers. I then used scissors to just cut around the wreath, but you could use a coordinating die if you have it. Keep in mind that any large image or die cut would work for this technique. You just put that swing feature towards the top. Okay, now I needed to add my sentiment in the center of the wreath. I'm using the Hero Arts Mix and Match Complement stamp set, which I've used before, and it'll definitely be on my favorites list for this year. So I started by stamping Lovely at the center of our wreath, and I stamped that with black ink, and then I stamped You Are above it and In Every Way below it. I like that you can use this stamp set to build different greetings. Next, I decided to add some berries to this wreath using Hero Arts enamel dots. I like these because there are 3 shades of a color in a pack and 3 sizes of each color. They're also great because they aren't very thick, and I thought these pops of red would stand out nicely on that wreath. Okay, off screen, I created the pieces for our swing feature. We have a white piece that's 4 1/4 by 4 1/4, that's on the left, with the small circle opening towards the top. Then we have our white craft foam piece that's slightly smaller, again with the circle cut towards the top. So we're going to glue those together. So I'm putting liquid adhesive onto the back of our craft foam piece and then adding it to the back of our white. So this will end up being a square note card. I also have my slightly larger circle die cut with the button already glued at the center. The last piece we need is a piece of cardstock that's smaller than our background, where we die cut the larger hole. So I'm going to line that up on the back, and then we'll trace our little dot or our opening onto it, so we know where to die cut the larger circle. I'll put the larger circle die right around that dot and run it through my die cut machine. Now we have our pieces ready. This time I'm not doing a note card, but instead I have a background panel that is green, and it's 4 1/2 by 4 1/2. And I'll glue that white piece with the big opening right on top of that. Now I'm going to pause this here to mention something. If you want your element to swing very freely and swing a lot where you don't have to move it, it kind of moves on its own, then I would die cut 1 or 2 more of those white pieces with the large circle element and stack those in there. That allows it to swing even more. I kind of wanted to control the swing on these examples, but that's a tip if you want to try it. Okay, so now I'm putting my button element in there, putting liquid adhesive onto the back of the craft foam piece, and then I'll line that all up together, making sure no adhesive touches that button element. We need that to wiggle around in there freely. So I'll just line that all up, make sure my button moves, and give it some time to dry. Now, another way to allow your element, the large element, to swing freely is to stack 2 buttons or use a thicker button. The button I used on this example was pretty thin, so I decided to stack another one on top. So I'm putting liquid adhesive on top of our first button and adding another one on top of that. If you have thicker buttons, you could definitely use that, or just stack 2 thinner buttons together like I'm doing here. Okay, the last step is to go ahead and put more liquid adhesive on top of the last button and layer element onto it so it's adhered at the top of the wreath. The only thing that's holding this wreath in place is the glue that is on that button. The last step is to write a personal message for behind that wreath. So I die cut a circle, cut a little bit off the top so it would fit nicely, and then wrote my message. I'm tucking that underneath the wreath and gluing it right onto the white piece. So this doesn't open like a traditional card, although you definitely could have put it onto a traditional card. But instead, when you swing that wreath, you'll see the greeting underneath it. And because it moves so well, the person will probably pull it out of the envelope and see the movement and know to look underneath it. If you wanted to create an element that only swings if you kind of pull on it, and you could write pull here if you wanted, you could instead do a brad on the top. You can also try to do a reveal card like this using a brad, but making sure that the brad is put together very loosely so there's freedom to move. Okay, so I hope you'll give this a try. Remember, you could do this with any large elements, either stamps that you cut out or dies, to create that reveal feature. If you're interested in these particular products, I do link them below in my description so you can find them easily. And in the middle are a couple other interactive cards that I think you might like. I thank you for the time that you spent here today. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you again soon.